Stickman just found a single missing sock, and he's about to connect it to a global cover-up. Nothing in his world is ever just a coincidence. This is Stickman, self-proclaimed detective and full-time conspiracy enthusiast. He doesn't have a badge, he doesn't have a license, he has a corkboard. And to him, that corkboard is more powerful than any badge. His motto, nothing is ever what it seems. His first case of the day, a single mosquito bite on his arm. He examined it closely, squinting with suspicion. He muttered, "This bite is oddly precise, too precise for a random mosquito." He pinned a photo of the bite onto his corkboard immediately. Underneath he wrote, "Government tracking device? Investigating further." Next, Stickman opened his laundry basket and found only one sock. He gasped, "The other one is gone. This is not normal." He searched every corner of the house, flipping over furniture. No sock, which to him only confirmed his darkest suspicions. He connected the sock case to the mosquito bite with a fresh piece of red string. He whispered, "It's all connected. It has to be." His roommate walked in and saw the growing chaos on the wall. He asked, "Is this about the sock again?" Stickman replied seriously, "It's about everything. The sock is just the beginning." The roommate sighed and walked away, shaking his head. Stickman simply added a new note, "Roommate, possibly compromised." Later, Stickman opened the fridge and noticed the milk had moved shelves. He gasped, "Someone's been in here. Someone rearranged my fridge." He didn't consider that he himself might have moved it the night before. Instead, he photographed the fridge from 3 different angles. Another string, another connection, another late night of research. By the end of the week, the corkboard had become an enormous web. There were notes about the mailman, the neighbor's cat, even the weather. Stickman stood back, admiring his sprawling masterpiece of suspicion. He whispered to himself, "It's all starting to make sense." One day, a neighbor knocked on his door, looking worried. She said, "My garden gnome keeps moving. Can you help?" Stickman's eyes lit up instantly. Finally, a real case. He grabbed his hat and magnifying glass, ready for action. At the garden, Stickman examined the gnome from every angle. He measured the gnome's footprints in the dirt with a tiny ruler. He declared, "These footprints suggest deliberate, calculated movement." The neighbor nodded eagerly, fully convinced by his confidence. In reality, it was just the neighbor's dog moving it every night. Stickman insisted on setting up a full surveillance operation. He hid behind a bush, notebook in hand, eyes fixed on the gnome. Hours passed. Nothing happened. He didn't move an inch. Then finally, movement. The dog trotted over and nudged the gnome. Stickman gasped from the bushes, just as I suspected, a decoy. He wrote in his notebook, "The dog is clearly a trained operative." The neighbor tried to explain, "That's just my dog. He does that." Stickman shook his head firmly. "That's exactly what a trained operative's owner would say." The neighbor slowly backed away, questioning her decision to call him. Back home, Stickman added the gnome case to his massive corkboard. He connected it with string to the sock, the fridge, and the mosquito bite. He stepped back, staring at the tangled mess with pure satisfaction. He whispered to himself, "The pattern is undeniable now." One afternoon, an actual private investigator stopped by, curious about the rumors. She looked at the corkboard, both impressed and deeply concerned. She asked, "Have you ever considered that things are sometimes just things?" Stickman paused, genuinely considering the question for the first time. He looked at his board with fresh eyes, seeing it differently for once. Maybe the sock really did just fall behind the dryer. Maybe the fridge really was just rearranged by his own tired hands. For a brief moment, doubt crept into his confident detective mind. The investigator sat beside him, offering some gentle wisdom. She said, "Real investigation starts with evidence, not assumptions." She showed him how to actually verify a clue before jumping to conclusions. Stickman listened carefully, nodding along with genuine interest. Inspired, Stickman decided to try a new, more careful approach. His next case? The office stapler had gone missing. Instead of jumping to conspiracy, he calmly asked his co-workers first. Turns out, someone had simply borrowed it and forgotten to return it. Case solved in under 5 minutes, a personal record. Slowly, Stickman found a balance between curiosity and common sense. He still loved a good mystery, but now he checked the simple answers first. His corkboard shrank down to just a few genuinely unsolved cases. His roommate even complimented him. "This is oddly reasonable of you." Then, one evening, something truly strange happened. All the clocks in his house had somehow stopped at the exact same time. This time, using his new methodical approach, he checked everything carefully. He discovered a simple, boring answer, a power flicker earlier that day. Case closed, simple as that, no conspiracy required. He smiled proudly at how far he had come as a detective. Just as he turned to leave, something caught his eye on the floor. There, lying innocently on the floor, was a single missing sock. Stickman froze, staring at it with wide, unblinking eyes. His new methodical training screamed, it probably just fell out of the laundry, but his old detective instinct screamed something else entirely. Slowly, a familiar grin spread across his face. He reached for his hat, magnifying glass, and a fresh roll of red string. He whispered, "Old friend, we meet again." The corkboard, which had shrunk so nicely, suddenly had room for one more thread. He pinned the sock right where it all began. His roommate walked by and sighed. "Here we go again." Stickman just laughed. Some mysteries are just too good to let go. He tied the string, connecting the sock to everything else on the board. And just like that, the balanced, reasonable detective was gone. In his place stood the same wild-eyed conspiracy theorist from the very beginning. He grinned at the camera and said, "The truth is out there, and it involves socks." The investigator, watching from the doorway, just smiled and shook her head. She said, "Some people just aren't meant to be cured completely." Stickman didn't even look up, fully absorbed in his new thread of string. And honestly, he wouldn't have wanted it any other way. Because for Stickman, an ordinary life was never really the point. The mystery, the chase, the thrill of connecting the dots, that was everything. Even if most of the time the dots didn't actually connect to anything at all. That night, he sat back in his chair, staring proudly at his life's work. He whispered one final thought before drifting off to sleep. The corkboard loomed quietly behind him in the dark, full of secrets, real or imagined. Somewhere outside, a dog barked, probably just a dog, but knowing Stickman, that bark would become tomorrow's biggest case. This has been Stickman's Conspiracy Files, Episode 1 of many. Keep your eyes open, question everything, and maybe check behind your dryer. See you in the next case. The truth is always just one string away.